In the decades before 1870, Europe's heartland trembled beneath the weight of ambitions that would soon reshape the continent. To nations France, heir to centuries of imperial grandeur, and Prussia, rising like steel from the fragmented German lands, stood on a collision course. Their destinies, and those of millions, were already being forged in the fires of politics, culture, and war. This was an age of glory and defeat, of nations daring to define themselves by sword, by statecraft, and by sacrifice. In 1815, Napoleon's empire collapsed on the fields of Waterloo, leaving France humiliated yet unbroken. The Congress of Vienna restored the Bourbon monarchy, but the old order could not contain the restless tide of nationalism and revolution. Paris remained a beacon of ideas, liberty, fraternity, equality, but also a stage of turmoil. In 1830, the July Revolution toppled the Bourbons, replacing them with Louis Philippe, the so-called citizen king. For 18 years he ruled a France torn between monarchist tradition and revolutionary fervor, until 1848 erupted in flames once more. That year, crowds filled the boulevards, shouting for bread, work, and democracy. Louis Philippe fled, and France proclaimed its Second Republic. The new republic was fragile. From its birth, it was pulled between socialist radicals demanding the people's sovereignty and conservatives fearing the abyss of chaos. Out of this turmoil rose a figure destined to change France forever. Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, nephew of the great emperor. Elected president in 1848, he cloaked himself in the memory of Napoleon I, promising both order and glory. By 1852, he had seized full power, declaring himself Emperor Napoleon III, and thus the Second Empire began. Paris grew into a city of wide boulevards and shining monuments under Baron Haussmann, while French arms reached a broad Crimea, Italy, Mexico seeking to restore the luster of empire. Yet beneath the marble facades, cracks spread. Workers resented exploitation. Republicans whispered of betrayal, and rivals watched the emperor with suspicion. Across the Rhine, another power stirred. Prussia, long overshadowed by Austria in German affairs, was forging a new path. Its king, Wilhelm I, came to the throne in 1861, but it was his minister, Otto von Bismarck, who would shape history. Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor, believed in blood and iron, not speeches and resolutions. He saw Germany not as a dream of poets, but as a reality to be won by calculated war. Prussia's army, reformed under General Helmuth von Moltke, became a modern machine of precision, discipline, and speed. Its railways, telegraphs, and breech-loading rifles would soon shock Europe. In Bismarck's eyes, Austria was the first obstacle. In 1866, he engineered a war over the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. The Austro-Prussian War lasted just 7 weeks. At Königgrätz, Prussia's forces crushed Austria, and with the Treaty of Prague, Austria was expelled from German affairs. A new North German Confederation rose under Prussian dominance, binding the Protestant North together in a union of power. For France, this was a thunderclap. Napoleon III had long feared a united Germany, and now the spectre was at his border. In Parisian salons and ministries, the question was whispered, should France strike before Prussia grew stronger still? Yet Napoleon III hesitated. His empire was gilded but brittle, stretched thin by misadventures in Mexico and weakened by economic unrest at home. His soldiers were brave, but his army was scattered, outdated in organization, and led by aging marshals who carried the shadow of past glories rather than the vigor of the future. One French observer confessed bitterly, "We live upon memories, while Prussia builds upon cannon." As the 1860s advanced, the rivalry deepened. Prussia's triumph had stirred the imagination of German patriots everywhere, from Bavaria to Saxony, who dreamed of unity beneath the black, white, and red. In France, pride and fear burned alike. Newspapers demanded action, calling Prussia an upstart that must be checked. The streets of Paris, lined with the brilliance of Haussmann's boulevards, also echoed with the cries of a restless populace demanding jobs and bread. Napoleon III, once confident, grew increasingly frail and indecisive, his health declining, his empire uncertain. Yet France still believed itself the first power of Europe. Its armies had marched with Napoleon the Great from Madrid to Moscow. Its culture, art, and ideas shaped the continent. To many, Prussia was nothing but a northern kingdom of soldiers, iron and smoke, destined to fall beneath the weight of France's prestige. But Bismarck's genius lay in turning prestige into a trap. He knew that a war with France would unite the hesitant southern German states with the Prussian north. He waited, prepared to provoke, while Moltke readied his plans. The stage was being set, and Europe held its breath. In the cafes of Paris, debates raged between Republicans, Bonapartists, and monarchists. In Berlin, soldiers drilled beneath the stern gaze of their officers, their rifles gleaming, their rail timetables rehearsed. The summer of 1870 approached, and with it, the spark that would ignite a war neither side could escape. In those years before 1870, the world of France and Prussia was one of contrasts, boulevards and barracks, memory and ambition, decline and rise. France sought to cling to its imperial glory, but defeat loomed on the horizon. Prussia, disciplined and relentless, marched toward destiny. Their clash was not merely of armies, but of centuries of history colliding in fire and steel. The glory of one would mean the defeat of the other, and in that crucible, modern Europe would be born. This story is not only of emperors and chancellors, but of millions who marched, fought, and endured in the shadow of their rulers' ambitions. It is a reminder of how quickly pride can falter, how swiftly nations can rise, and how deeply the choices of one generation shape the fate of the next. To understand the world before 1870 is to understand the storm that was coming, the storm of Franco-Prussian War, and with it the reshaping of Europe itself. And so, as we walk through this age of glory and defeat, we remember not only the grand visions of power, but the fragile lives caught within them. For history is not distant, breathes through us still, in the borders of nations, in the monuments of cities, and in the lessons etched by fire. This episode was crafted with dedication to bring you closer to the past, to let you see and feel the pulse of a century before its great turning point. If you value this kind of historical storytelling, support the effort, share the journey, and let history's voice be heard. For only by remembering can we truly understand the world we inherit today.